Hasta la vista, baby. It's time for science. Welcome to SciFriday on SkyWatchTV. I'm Derek Gilbert. With me, as always, the SkyWatchTV science editor and my best friend, my wife, Sharon K. Gilbert.
Hi, sweetie pie. Was that the Terminator?
That was. Yeah, I don't do a very good Arnold, so.
Who does? Only Arnie.
Only Arnold?
He's a one of a kind.
Yeah. Although I would say Henry Kissinger comes pretty close.
Voice-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, he kind of does.
Yeah,
I never really thought about that.
So
doesn't look anything like him.
If I go for Kissinger, I probably get closer to Arnold.
Anyway. There you go. There you go. Well, you can work on that, and the next time we come on, you can do your impression.
That's
I'm sure
right.
everyone's going to look forward to that. By the way, I want to say something. My husband is running out of suspenders. So if you have extra suspenders at home that you would love to see him wear on camera, then they can't be anything too crazy.
Well,
and
yeah,
the
that's true.
pictures on them have to be appropriate for Christian television.
That's right. Safe for work.
I forgot to put my rings back on. I took them off because they were, I've lost a lot of weight.
Yes, you have.
And almost, well, as of today, it's 69 pounds. And I'm finding that my wedding rings don't fit anymore. And so I have to readjust them periodically. And I'm wearing another ring that just kind of holds them on. So we'll see what happens.
Well, pretty soon we'll just have them 3D printed right onto your skin.
And we can actually, that segues into the very first. You're good.
Professional.
You are a professional. What if you had this screen on your skin?
Well, gosh, that could make life really either really convenient or really a nuisance.
It depends. Remember the short story, The Illustrated Man?
Yes, Rod
We're
Steiger played in the video version.
Almost to that.
Really?
Yes. Now this is still, it really looks just like something has been attached to your skin because it looks like sort of like cellophane or something on top of your skin. But the day is coming when electronic ink will be used. And I really think that we're moving to a day, at the very least, when it gets into the day where cyborgs are able to interact with us, sort of like in the TV show Humans, and also, of course, in Battlestar Galactica, that they will have the capability of changing their skin color, there may be patterns. This is called e-skin, electronic skin, and it allows for what they're just saying now as a biometric display. It's sort of what your smartwatch would do for you now. And I know that there are probably people standing in line. They want to be the first to adopt the new technology. You and I are,
early
for
adopters.
Our age group, we're pretty early adopters usually, but I really don't see myself using this. In fact, this morning I talked to you about Amazon.com. I always go there every morning to see what they may have that's special that day because I love saving money if it's something we need. And I took a look there, and they now have a VR headset that was listed this morning for $29. Not cardboard, it's actually made of industrial plastic. However, the reviews made it sound like it's not quite as good as it could be, but it was only $29. My point is that we are quickly moving ahead with this technology, things on your skin, VR immersion, where it is affordable for everyone.
Right. And this e-skin is actually a technology that could be used to put a mark on the hand or the forehead.
That day is coming, or the electronic tattoos, the ink that is out there now. In fact, that ink is used in a lot of printing for labels now because it's got RFID capability in the ink itself. Exactly.
Yeah.
So don't think you have to actually have a chip. Yeah. Well, what else is in this little list of stuff? Biometric hostels.
Now, hostels, not meaning unfriendly, but hostel being a sort of
it depends on where it is.
Student hotel that
essentially
people traveling to Europe will often stay at a hostel, H-O-S-T-E-L.
Yeah, essentially a really inexpensive place to stay overnight if you're a student, and generally backpackers are what are doing this. In India, and the claim is that the reason is because of misuse of funds, government funds, to take care of this. They want to make sure that the correct number of people, the people who are going through, that they're being billed for the items they really use, things like that. So imagine you go and you check into, you're 20 years old and you're backpacking through various parts of Asia and you decide to stay in India for a while. You go into a hostel and they say, I'm sorry, you can't stay here until we get your biometric ID and register it with the government.
Yeah.
There are some in the United States who would say, why aren't we doing that here?
Yeah, keep track of who's coming across the borders. And that day is probably coming.
And that's my point. The things that we see, India, because it is a relatively new, it's an emerging nation, and so the technology they have there is actually in some ways way advanced to ours. So the fact that they have been implementing biometric IDs there for about 10 years tells me that we're going to see it in Europe and the United States and probably Canada and South America very soon.
Yeah, there's probably more resistance to it in this part of the world because of the percentage of Christians who have a kind of a nagging sense that something like this is not a good idea.
And there's
I think
nothing
maybe,
wrong with that nagging sense.
Exactly, because we understand that there is a prophesied one world government coming someday. And part of it too may just be this residue, if you will, this lingering streak of individualism and libertarianism in the classical sense that Americans have, which is what our nation was founded on, limited government. I don't want the government to know everything I'm doing all the time. That is, of course, being worn away as we change the basic composition of the nation through immigration and through new generations that are coming up that think globalism is a good thing because the public schools are indoctrinating them to believe that that is a good thing. So our privacies are being invaded, and it doesn't appear to be as objectionable to people on the coast, progressives, or to younger people as, old crotchety folks like me and you.
No, but the day is quickly coming when it will be not only students coming through, people coming through the borders, people coming through the airports. It'll be every child who's born.
Well, because if the government is going to provide cradle-to-grave health care, which is the whole point of the breakdown of Obamacare, and there was more news on that this week, as one of the largest health insurance companies in the nation has said it's going to pull out of 29 out of the 34 state exchanges in which it was involved next year. 800,000 people got to find new choices. And of the 5 big health insurance companies, 4 of them have merged. And so you're down with United Healthcare dropping out, so now you're down to only 3 left in the major exchanges.
This morning we were talking...
But I think it's deliberate, and the point is that they want to make put the government in control of all of this, and then the only way for them to keep track of who's getting what benefits is to make sure that they've got records on all of us, whether it's biometric or genomic.
And speaking of that, the federal government wants to build a massive online database. Hat tip to Eric. Thank you for sending this to me on Facebook. This is really disturbing in light of the other story that I want to talk about, and that is that the federal governmental departments and entities such as the CIA, the FBI, the Department of National Defense, whatever you want to call them, there are letters that I don't know. There are letters within letters within letters. And they want to have everyone share the same software so they can communicate together. Sounds like a great idea. But they want to move to open source software.
Okay.
And I know that there are many people out there that disagree with me on that. They think open source is very safe. My objection to open source is that the source code is right there for you to see.
Exactly.
Which is great if you want to collaborate with other people and help to improve it. But if there are terrorists out there that get to see your source code and they can take your site down or redo anything and access all of your genomic data material and your biometric system IDs, therefore they can spoof your identity using they can put up their own biometric stuff and say, I'm now Derek Gilbert. So there.
Yeah. Department of Health and Human Services is looking for businesses that can help build this hub that they're calling the Gen Port, which will help researchers look into the results of different studies being conducted with genomic information. And I understand the information, the idea that the concept of wanting to standardize the software that's being used by different departments of the government. I talked to a former F-18 pilot, Marine Corps F-18 pilot years ago, who told me that there were sadly plenty of unnecessary friendly fire deaths during the first Gulf War because the computer systems being used by the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Army and the Air Force didn't talk to one another. They all had preferred vendors that were supplying software, and since they were speaking on different systems at the same time, they couldn't necessarily identify a friendly from a foe in real time when needed. So I understand the concept there. There are benefits to it, but as you say, if you're going to make it open source, you're also allowing other people access to it. thing is, hackers are so ingenious that I'm not sure there's any way to really keep this secure, even if it wasn't open source, which is my problem with having a national database of just healthcare records. Forget about my genomic data. I don't want my records in the federal government's hands.
The records about your children,
Yeah.
what they have had done,
Right.
what they haven't had done, where they live, where they go to school,
Right.
all that stuff's in there. Yeah, this open source software, I love the title of this article. DHS, open source software is like giving the mafia a copy of the FBI system code.
That it is indeed.
And we laugh about that, but just this week, I think you may have mentioned this in one of your updates, the fact that the NATO
Yes.
source code and the passwords and many other details of NATO
Radio
operations.
frequencies. Yeah, for an upcoming military exercise being taken place off the coast of Scotland was accidentally emailed to a number of Scottish fishermen and ferry operators. So now, in addition to the aircraft and the soldiers and the helicopters, you have a couple of dozen angry Scottish fishermen as part of these exercises because somebody at NATO accidentally pushed the wrong button and sent the email out to the wrong
Juan,
people.
our friend in Scotland, is going to have to keep an eye on that. So Juan, stand by the coastline and keep your, take pictures for us. Good grief.
Well, this is SciFriday, and we've got an important question to ask. When is science not science? The answer, sadly, is most of the time. We'll explain when SciFriday continues after this. To celebrate the release of Nita Horn's inspiring new book, No Fences, SkyWatch TV would like you to tell your story, because after all, even if you don't think so, you actually have a story.
Send in your story, and we are going to choose the 10 best, and they'll be published for Christmas release in an anthology of those stories, along with the book that you buy. That is actually only $19.95. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
For free. Tom Horn, crazy guy, he's throwing in a journal, which on its own, most of these retail for $20 on their own. So this journal is to help you start writing your story. When you buy the book, not only are you going to be enrolled in this and you can send in your story, but you'll get a plastic pony, you'll get a journal of your own, and the proceeds from the book are going to help fund the studio we're building for Skywatch Women. And Nita Horn is going to be one of our panel members.
The 10 authors who are selected for the anthology, published by Defender Publishing in time for Christmas, will also receive a $500 cash prize.
And that'll go a long way at Christmas time, won't it?
Yes, it will. Even if your story is not one of those selected for the anthology, if you've taken the time to write your story, you've left a legacy for your children and for your grandchildren.
Amen to that.
For complete instructions and details on this opportunity, please log on to skywatchtv.com/nofences. It's SciFriday on SkyWatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert with Sharon Gilbert, our
Hi, Eddie.
science editor.
Nice to be back.
The
We've
one,
been gone so long.
No, it seems like 90 seconds. There was one story that I really wanted to talk about, because this is one I think that is really at the heart of what we're doing and why we bring this up in a Christian ministry and discuss science.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, the other main reason is that science is the technique by which we understand God's creation. It is the process by which we better understand
The scientific method.
the scientific method. Now, the problem, though, is that the scientific method is often abused.
That's a gentle way to put it.
That is a gentle way to put it. I'm trying to be fair. There was an article at the online journal First Things, that I think is really important. That's a journal that deals with faith and culture. Wesley J. Smith writes at First Things on a regular basis. Much of what is called science these days is not really science. And when those of us who are not credentialed scientists, I mean, you've got a degree in molecular biology. My degree is in econ. So I don't have any standing on which to say, this is flawed science, this is false science, this is... And scientists, sadly, will often use their credentials as a bludgeon to silence critics. The science is settled, be quiet, you know nothing, you undergraduate economics degree person. But the Open Science Collaboration, which is a group that wanted to check the work of published experiments, things that have made it into major peer-reviewed journals, last year tried to replicate 100 published psychology experiments that were taken from 3 of the most prestigious journals in the field. And when they ran these studies themselves and tried to replicate the results, they found that 65% of them failed to show statistical significance on replication. This also applies in the pharmaceutical industry, sadly.
Yes.
And this is frightening because this has implications for all of us if you take any kind of prescription meds. Bayer, which is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, tried to replicate this. This was back in 2011, looking at 67 recent drug discovery projects that had dealt with preclinical cancer biology research. So important stuff. They found that in their in-house tests and trying to replicate these experiments, that in 75% of the cases, the data didn't match the published data, the stuff that had made it into the peer-reviewed journals. Now, when a study fails to replicate, there are two possible explanations. The one is that, unbeknownst to the investigators, there was a difference between the original experiment and the one that tries to replicate the original results. The other interpretation is that the original finding was false. Now, why would the original finding be false? There are a number of reasons for this.
There are lots of reasons.
Yeah. Journals are in competition for readership and advertising dollars. And if they can publish really cutting-edge, exciting, groundbreaking new research, they're more likely to attract those readers and those advertisers.
Oh, yeah.
Researchers, as you know from your work at university level, in order to get grant funding, you have to produce.
You do.
There is pressure.
You do, and oftentimes your funding comes from a pharmaceutical house. So when you read these studies online, and PLOS One, PLOS, is a great place to go and read original reports from scientists, peer-reviewed articles. Look at the very bottom, because they legally have to tell you where the money came from.
Yeah.
And if they are looking at, say, something to lower the pressure in your eye, if you have glaucoma, then they have to look and see if a glaucoma maker sponsored it.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes, as you pointed out to me, as we discussed this beforehand, that sometimes research that shows that there is no correlation between two factors, or that a particular drug has no impact on a specific disease, is really important research.
Yes.
But it's kind of boring. It is not as exciting as saying, we found what could be a cure for cancer, instead of saying, well, we've just ruled out this possible cure.
99.99% of science is very boring. It's repetitive, and it's finding out, it's baby steps, really tiny incremental changes. But as you say, the media want to take the tiniest little bit of a tidbit and blow it up. Right.
So anyway, as part of this article at First Things, 2,000 research psychologists in 2011 were surveyed, and in the survey, over half of them admitted to selectively reporting those experiments which gave the result they were after. So you've got scientists who admittedly, and were answering a blind survey, so they weren't identified, but in that we're admitting that the science that we are told is settled is often the result of either bad technique or just outright deception, fraud.
But honey, it's been going on for a long, long time. Gregor Mendel, who lived in the mid-19th century and did the
Father
famous
of genetics.
P experiments, he fudged a lot of his data. He left out things that didn't make sense to him. He wanted a nice, clean, Punnett square, and if it didn't fit into that, which we know because of epigenetics and many other factors, it will not fit. Genetics is messy. It's not super clean the way we want, statisticians want it to be. So he left a lot of things out. And because of that, inheritance patterns in the early 20th century were assumed to be settled science, and therefore when the eugenicists came along, they thought they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it was cutting edge, and and people who questioned them were just, they just didn't know. They were uneducated, didn't know what they were talking about. So anyway, my whole point in spending so much time on this particular article is just to remind you that when scientists say the science is settled, don't feel badly for saying, oh, really? Well,
well, as far as I'm
reserve my
concerned,
right to be skeptical.
As far as I'm concerned, nothing is settled science until the Lord God Almighty says, yep.
That's it. End of history.
Yep, there you go. There are things going on in the world right now that have to do with illnesses, and they take place primarily in the third world, because the third world deals with a lot of vector-borne illnesses, and we've talked about the Zika virus. There was recently the World Health Organization and other folks who are trying to, like the CDC, trying to figure out just how vulnerable the world population is to the Zika virus in the coming summer. was taking a look at the numbers, and they believe 2.2 billion people.
2.2 billion people are at risk.
2.2 billion people,
Now
primarily in developing nations.
Yeah, it's mostly the southern hemisphere with a small band along the north coast of Australia and in the southeastern United States,
Exactly.
along the Gulf Coast of the U.S.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And many people live along the Gulf Coast of the United States.
I mean, from Houston over to Tampa, down to Miami, or around to Jacksonville. I mean, there's a lot of people there in the
so here's the
southeastern
thing.
U.S.
If you take a look at West Nile virus and the way it has slowly spread over the last 10 to 15 years across the United States, early on it was very new, and the assumption was that this will probably only be in the lower states, in Florida and Alabama and Mississippi, but it's now in Missouri, northern Missouri, in the Dakotas. I mean, it's almost all over the United States. This, in 10 years, could very well be all over the United States, especially if it becomes something that not just the Aedes mosquito can carry, but also the Anopheles mosquito.
Yeah, and since their habitats overlap, that there is a possibility that could happen.
Yeah. Speaking of disease, there is a disease that, what was it, about 10, 12 years ago, maybe a little longer than that, when I drove back to Indiana and I saw dead deer all along the way.
Oh, chronic wasting disease.
Almost every mile I saw another dead deer.
Yeah.
And now, apparently, chronic wasting disease, which is a prion disease, it's similar
like
to mad cow or Creutzfeldt-Jakob syndrome. It has taken off in Europe, apparently, and a lot of stag are dying, and elk. Yeah, not stag, but elk. Stag's a type of elk.
Yeah.
Let me come in again. Oh, if only we could edit these in a way that made me seem like I just never forgot a thing. Wouldn't that be nice? No, they're really dealing with this over there, and it's a big problem because there are probably folks in less, we'll say, economically affluent areas that depend upon elk for their food.
Yeah, yeah, and it's bizarre because scientists really don't explain much about this. In fact, now that you mention this, there was and I don't have this at hand because I wasn't thinking about this, but last year I stumbled on a story on a deer, a species of deer that's native to the steppes of Asia, Kazakhstan, and how they were dying mysteriously. I mean, in huge numbers.
You know, I should probably take a look at that and see how close the areas of Europe that are now reporting them are to Kazakhstan. It doesn't say in here exactly. Also, the United States occasionally will have a story pop up that mad cow is seen in something that we've shipped to Canada or to Europe, because the United States is very proud of the fact that our cattle supply is free of that disease.
And also of hoof and mouth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, these things can very easily take off, and it would not take much for suddenly the food supply of the United States, when it comes to animal protein, to just be shut down completely.
Yeah. We just have a couple of minutes left. There's a story here that I really wanted to get to that we talked about earlier, and that's DARPA's investigation trying to develop a self-mutating vaccine to counter viruses.
Yeah, that reminds me a little bit about the Armageddon strain chip that I put into.
Exactly.
The biostrain chip, I mean, that I put into Armageddon strain. It was something that was nanotechnology in my fictional story that actually adapted with whatever diseases you were exposed to and with your own health system, but it also was hackable from the outside if chosen, and they could kill you if they wanted to.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. This doesn't sound like a good idea. I do not think this is a very good idea.
This would not make a good Christmas present. This is beyond my limited understanding of immunology. The plan is to use therapeutic interfering particles, which are thin sections of DNA within protein shells.
Yeah.
I mean, this sounds like the stuff of science fiction.
It kind of does, and I need to read more on it, so I can't really speak much to it. I have one final story. I don't know how much time we have, but two, actually. I'll mention one briefly, and then I'll take a look at that story so I can talk more about it next week.
Okay.
But in your mushrooms, take a look, see if they're GMO, because GMO mushrooms using the CRISPR-Cas9 technology have now been approved by the USDA to go onto your table.
Really?
Here in the United States, yes, indeed. So take a look at the mushrooms you get, make sure that they're not GMO. But the last story I want to mention is a really good one, I think. We talked about 3D printing on here a number of times. Wisconsin middle school teacher used a 3D printer to make new feet for a duck.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that cool? The duck, for whatever reason, lost its feet. They may have been frozen. I don't really know.
Yeah, frostbite. I saw that story.
Yeah, and the duck is getting used to the new feet and waddling around and now has a longer life because someone intervened using technology. So you can use technology for really wonderful things.
Yeah. There's nothing, science is not inherently bad. It's that humans are inherently bad.
Yeah.
There's
We are
none righteous,
fallen.
no, not
Hey,
one.
there's sin.
That's right. Hey, check us out on Facebook. Give us a like at our Facebook page. I'll just put the address right here. And of course, you can email us, SciFriday at SkyWatchTV.com. Don't forget, in the month of April, your gift of $20 or more to SkyWatch TV gets you this glass block Amazing Grace paperweight.
It's really nice.
Yep.
Very, very nice.
And the audiobook edition of Tom and Nita Horn's supernatural thriller, The Ahriman Gate. Log on to
With your voice,
skywatchtv.com/donate.
they can listen to that voice for days.
Well, it's better than what it is now. I'll give it. I'll at least say that. Well, we thank you once again for watching. Have a blessed weekend, and we'll be here again next week, God willing. Thanks for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert for Sharon Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV. Save nearly half off the cover price when you subscribe now to the brand new SkyWatch TV magazine. For a limited time from April 24th through June 24th, 60 days only, a 5-year subscription to SkyWatch TV magazine is just $99. That's more than $75 off the cover price, which is like getting 2 years for free. Exclusive content, articles on prophecy, discovery, and the supernatural from Tom Horn, Chris Putnam, Josh Peck, science updates from Sharon K. Gilbert, geopolitics from yours truly, and guest writers like Pulitzer Prize-nominated journalist Troy Anderson, renowned Bible scholar Dr. Michael Heiser, Pentagon advisor Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis, and more. But there is more. As an early subscriber, you'll be the first to get this new book from Defender Publishing. I predict what 12 global experts believe you'll see by 2025. This is a $20 value and includes best-selling authors like Joel Richardson, Mark Biltz, Carl Gallups, Tom Horn, Paul McGuire, and more. Find out what they think about the coming war between ISIS and the Vatican, the future of the Temple Mount and the Ark of the Covenant, a worldwide manifestation of angels, and the coming age of human hybrids. And we'll also add this DVD, The Best of SkyWatch TV 2015, a $25 value, including our most compelling interviews from last year, including Chuck Missler, Steve Quayle, the discussion of the Georgia Guidestones with Chris Pinto, and more. All of this together worth more than $200, yours now for just $99, but only through June 24th. Subscribe now, SkyWatch TV magazine. Just call the number on your screen or log on to skywatchtvstore.com.